Veteran employment is a hot topic. Everybody talks about veteran employment issues, and so many companies are talking about how they are or want to be veteran friendly. We want to hire more veterans. But a lot of them, they say that and they don't necessarily know what that means or where to start. We work with people all the time in this area. Um, and a common theme is they say, we want to hire more veterans. How do we hire more veterans? And our first question is, why do you want to hire more veterans? And then their reply tells us a lot about where they're at. Are they looking to acquire and support and retain veteran talent because that is a quality source of talent? Or are they looking for, what they think could be a high performing labor wage employee, which we all know is not really a good fit for veterans who are transitioning out because they have experience. They're coming from a salaried position, and I could go on and on and on. There are a lot of companies out there that do it wrong, unfortunately, and there are some companies out there that do it right. That do it right, and not only do it right as in regards to hiring, but also supporting and retaining veteran talent and military spouse talent. Nobody's looking for special treatment here, but traditionally underrepresented groups of people, underrepresented demographics, of which veterans are included, have some barriers to entry between them and long-term substantive employment that just need a little bit of special consideration. And if you really want to leverage the incredible power of having a diverse team that is supported the right way, you can't treat them all the same. And when you have underrepresented groups of people, which you need if you want to have a truly diverse workforce, there are some special considerations, right? Nobody's asking for special treatment. Every time I talk about this on TikTok, everyone's like, you just want handouts. No, no, they're just some special considerations for all of your employees. Anyways, one of the companies that does this right is Associated Bank. And we're good friends with them, good friends of theirs for a long time. We love them over there. And our friend Mallory is here to talk to us from Associated Bank, to talk to us about what they do to engage, attract, hire, support, retain, and develop veteran and military spouse talent. So we're going to get into that. Apologies for the little delay there. That's 2 weeks in a row I've had connectivity issues. I think that was on my end. Got to get my router looked at or something. But anyways, we're going to dive right in right after this. Let's go! Excellent. And here we are. Mallory, you're here.
Yes, yeah, thank you for having me.
You betcha. How are things going? Sorry about the delay.
Oh, no, that's all right. Things are going good. I mean, I think like everybody, the recruiting space is busy, busy right now, but that's a good thing, right?
Absolutely. Well, let's start there. I mean, so what is your role with Associated Bank? It sounds like you are in the recruiting and hiring. You're in the talent management area.
Yeah.
What is the ecosystem? What does the climate look like in your discipline, in your field?
Yeah, yep, absolutely. So I am one of our senior talent acquisition consultants here at Associated Bank. So I do work as part of our recruiting or talent acquisition team. And I would say the climate is probably along the lines of what you've been hearing in the news. Of course, this
Mhm.
is a big topic for everybody right now. I mean, quite frankly, the labor market that we're in right now is unprecedented. I've never seen anything like it. I know people who have been in the recruiting space significantly longer than I have that have also said the same thing, that in the 20, 30 years they've been recruiting, they've never seen a market like this on either side. Coming out of the pandemic, a lot of companies are going through a lot of growth. They're hiring at an extremely accelerated rate to what we may have seen even 5 years ago. But then there's also this interesting dynamic in the labor pool where there are significantly more jobs than there are candidates that are looking. The unemployment rate is even lower than it was pre-pandemic, which none of us thought could happen, but it did.
Mhm.
Um, and so there's just this interesting dynamic of companies trying to grow and find the talent to grow with in a market where there's not talent to be had that are unemployed or not employed somewhere today.
It sounds like it almost sounds like it's a buyer's market and a seller's market at the exact same time.
100%. Yep, 100%. I would agree.
So we have a lot of talent out there who is looking for other opportunities,
Mhm.
yet being very, very picky. I think
Absolutely.
there has been a wave of a shift, which I think has been really important, putting the power back in the employees
Yes.
and getting them to a lot of employees are saying, look, this is what I want to do, this is what I don't want to do,
Mhm.
this is what I want, this is what I don't want, and if you
Yep.
can't provide that to me, there's a million other employers out there.
Yep.
But at the same time, there are employers who have opportunities that
Mhm.
legit need to be filled, but have better opportunities than the people next to them. So it's like
Mhm.
buyers and sellers at the same time. What It's like they're standing on two edges of a gorge
Mhm.
with a big gap in between them. How do you build a bridge between the two of them? Where's the disconnect?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, I mean, I think it's forced a lot of change in not only the way that companies look for talent, but also in the way that candidates search for jobs. Like you said, I mean, there are some things, and I think particularly from a work-life balance perspective that have come out of the pandemic that companies need to adjust to, that candidates are looking for. Because, like you said, it's definitely a very interesting dynamic in that. Candidates have a lot of opportunities to choose from. There's a lot that's out there, so they can definitely afford to be picky. But at the same point, um, employers can also, in a sense, kind of be picky as well, because there's a
Right.
lot of people that are taking advantage of the job market that we have today that are open to having that conversation that 2 or 3 years ago, if a recruiter had reached out to them, they would have said, no, no, thank you. I know I'm not looking. More people are being open to having that conversation. So both sides can afford to be picky. And so I think, like you said, where that bridge comes from is, and what I really encourage candidates to do is I talk to people who might be looking at competing offers or multiple companies, is at the end of the day, it's not always so much about the job. But the values, what is important to you? Is it work life balance? Is it compensation? Is it growth opportunity? What's important to you, and find a company that aligns with that. And that's where that bridge is going to come from for each of those candidates and companies. Because while everybody would love to take on a promotional opportunity or get paid more, those are kind of givens. Sometimes it's worth taking a lateral move, or in some cases, even a step back, if you're going to find a company that aligns with what you're looking for in terms of values or possibly even growth, that you may have to take a step back to take a step forward.
And what are you seeing now? I mean, obviously, you've been doing this for quite some time
Mhm.
as a senior talent manager. You have experience. You've done it. You've seen it.
Yeah.
What's different now than before there was the buyer plus seller market thing going on? Are you is it just this wide variety of things that matter to people? Are you seeing some trends, like, okay, employers need to offer work from home, or for example, or employees just want more compensation, or they want more autonomy, or they want, more clearly defined advancement opportunities. Like, what are those things that you're noticing that are different now?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think some of those common things never go away. They're always going to be there. But I think for a lot of people, the focus has really been on values.
Hmm.
I think the pandemic in particular brought out a lot about companies and the way that they operate. And there's no one right way to do it or one wrong way to do it. Every company operates differently, and I'll even say that between roles they operate very differently. Like from a work from home perspective, we have some positions that they physically will never be able to work from home. Like if they're in
Mhm.
a business to business sales position, they're always going to have to be out getting in front of clients. That's never
Right.
going to change.
Mhm.
So work from home may not be as important to that group as it may be to some others. But holistically, I think people are looking at the way their company reacted to the pandemic and the way that their company is coming out of the pandemic. The pandemic, I mean, not only for people personally, but within the economic space, really disrupted everything. And the way that
Mhm.
companies are responding is going to become increasingly important. So, again, I think it'll vary a little bit depending on the role as to what people are going to be looking for. But I think at the end of the day, it does come down to that company's values, that company's path for success. We're seeing a lot of people, and I would say across the board, that the reason they're open to having that conversation is because of one of those two things in some capacity. Whether it's they're forcing them to come back to the office and they don't want to, they want to work remote.
Right. Right.
Or maybe they're, if in like a sales position, maybe their company completely changed and restructured their commission structure in order to save money that made it less advantageous to the employee, where now they're looking for somewhere that maybe has an uncapped commission plan. Those types of things and the way the company is deciding to operate, people are leveraging this candidate market to their advantage to be able to find something that more closely aligns with what they're looking for.
So I want to back up just a little bit
Yeah.
when you were saying that we were talking about the buyer seller market and
Yeah.
how employment seekers are being more picky, but
Mhm.
employers, job offerers, are
Mhm.
able to be more picky too. Are you seeing as a result of that, um, and kind of a higher rate of great opportunities? Are you seeing more great jobs go to great people at great companies? Are you seeing more of those high level quality employment connections as a result of this? Or do they kind of cancel each other out and it's just more of the same, just with a different, same Christmas tree, different star on top of it, sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on the situation, but I mean, I definitely think this environment creates the opportunity for that.
Mm.
Because, and it's not necessarily anyone's fault, but there are times where at a company, you may have a high performer that you don't have that next step for them, whether it's that the company is too small and that next step doesn't exist, or maybe there's somebody already in that spot today that's not planning on leaving anytime soon. That this environment definitely kind of creates that opportunity for employers who are looking to fill that next level role to
Mhm.
be able to connect with those people that, again, they're probably not actively looking. They're probably not out there submitting applications and actively looking to leave their role. They're not unsatisfied. They're not disengaged. But if somebody were to reach out with that next step that they're looking for, that they can have that opportunity now instead of waiting 5 years for it, they
Right.
would be silly not to at least listen to it and not to at least hear what that company has to offer. So I think we are seeing a lot of that where maybe other companies are able to provide that next step for somebody quicker. That we're seeing those high performing, high potential individuals that, again, were not disengaged or were not looking to leave, that are deciding to make that change, go to another employer, take that next step into a high performing role, where then you are seeing that match of those great people and those great companies and those great roles kind of coming together because of the market environment and the opportunity it created.
Right on. So let's talk about veterans
Mhm.
specifically then. What sort of things do you notice? Are do veterans have, and I think I know the answer, do they have special considerations in a, coming from a recruiter, from a talent manager?
Mhm.
What special considerations do you give veteran talent, military spouses, that people in that
Yeah.
ecosystem? What's different there, and what things do you need to keep in mind?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the biggest thing to keep in mind, which I'm probably harping an old tune, but I mean, especially, which I think is not dissimilar to others that are out there, especially in an industry like banking, it's really easy to get caught up in looking for extremely technical skills of somebody who is already a loan underwriter, or already working with this certain product or service. And so, really, what we try to do in talent acquisition, as we're reviewing applications as the gatekeepers, so to speak,
Mhm.
as well as educating our hiring managers, is that I mean, diversity is good. We've really been trying to educate our managers lately on the concept of cultural contribution, and not looking for a fit to their team, somebody who fits exactly into the mold and the experience that they have today, but somebody with a different background or a different perspective that can add value. That coming in without that experience is probably a good thing, that
Mhm.
they can bring in a new perspective to the table that somebody who is already an underwriter for another organization may not have today. Um, so we really try to focus on that, knowing, I mean, as everybody listening to this podcast would agree with, I mean, veterans have some really amazing skill sets and experiences, a lot of times higher education that you may see in the traditional civilian workforce that if you just give them an opportunity and be willing to teach them the technical industry specific side of it, they'll do great and they'll excel. And so sometimes it's looking beyond that resume of what their job title and what their responsibilities were, but really looking at what skills did they need to use, what competencies have they developed, and how does that align with the skills and competencies needed for this role?
That is I just want to like make a quote out of what you just said and make a billboard or a poster out of it because it is absolutely spot on. The buzz phrase translating skills. We
Yeah.
hear it all the time, but a lot of people don't really understand
What does it mean?
exactly what goes into translating. They think like, well, you may have a couple acronyms here and there, some military speak, but other than that, we need line by line skill matchup, but that's not
Hmm.
translation.
Right.
That's translating skills is seeing the level of responsibility, the level of capability, and the level of success at those high levels, and seeing if they can, with a little tweak here and there, fit in.
Hmm.
And a lot of those certifications that people get in the military is in depth, high level, but doesn't necessarily translate to the civilian world.
Right.
A combat medic, for example, who has combat experience could
Hmm.
probably do a pretty darn good job in an ER setting,
Hmm.
in a civilian ER setting, but without, a laundry list of certifications, which they
Right.
wouldn't have necessarily gotten from the military, they wouldn't be able to be employed.
Right.
So being able to see those potential fits, closing those gaps in certification and, check marks where necessary is super important. So it's
Hmm.
great for companies like yours to see that, like, yes, certain line by line items may not fit, but bigger picture, can they figure that out?
Right.
Yeah, are the bigger skills there? That is skills translation. So that is like, yeah, I want to make a poster out of that. That's really important. So if you have transitioning military members, you have veterans,
Hmm.
you have maybe guard reserve service members in the area who are
Yeah.
looking for a job, a post-service job, a new job, or a new career rather. I should use the word career, not job.
Yes.
We're thinking longer term here. Um, what advice would you have for them? Some of them, golly, some transitioning military members, their resumes look like garbage, and they don't necessarily know how to talk to a recruiter or a
Hmm.
talent manager or what. So what have you seen, and what advice would you give to people who are on the employment seeking end of things?
Yeah. I mean, I would say, I mean, probably the biggest piece of advice that I can offer is find out what your resources are. I mean, as I've worked in recruiting and over the last couple years, as I've gotten continually more involved in the veteran recruiting space, there are so many resources out there of people who want to help, not only at the state level, which I know sometimes can potentially get a little bit backlogged,
Mhm.
but there's private organizations. There are individuals even on LinkedIn that are just like, hey, I'm open to helping people advance their career. I'm a career coach, that will do it absolutely free. I mean, their job,
Mhm.
their goal is just to help people and help them find that job. And I mean, one thing that I've seen, which a little bit of a stereotype, but I think it's a stereotype that's true, is veterans tend to be very self-sufficient. They don't
Yeah.
want to ask for help. They wait until things get so dire
Right.
or so frustrating, and then that's when they ask for help. And
Right.
it doesn't have to be that way.
Right.
There's a lot of organizations, like I know here, right at the chamber, there's a lot of resources. There's people who are not even necessarily career coaches or do this for a living that are just passionate about this, that would be willing to help somebody to edit their resume or translate their experience, or even other organizations. Like I know one of the partners that we have from an employer standpoint, is Mission Wisconsin, with Steve
Mhm.
Yankee, that I know you
Mhm.
guys are
Mhm.
familiar with.
Yep. Yeah, you bet. He's
And
great.
yeah, and he works with all of those veterans, their spouses, sometimes even their kids, completely free from their perspective, to
Absolutely.
help them with that transition. So I guess that's the biggest thing that I would say is look and see what your resources are, and don't wait until you are so incredibly frustrated that you don't know what else to do to look for them.
Right. Yeah, your career search is like it's like having a pet or a child. Like, you don't
Yeah,
just feed it when it's starving and on the brink of death. You gotta
yeah,
kinda nurture the thing and
yeah.
cont yeah, keep it alive and, I just came up with that analogy right now. I'm gonna write that down, I think. Um, so from the employer end, so if somebody
Mhm.
is watching and they are like, "I wanna hire more veterans," what would you
Yeah,
say to them? What do they need to get right? Especially if they're, "We're trying to hire veterans, but we can't find any." What are the
yeah.
things that set an employer apart and make them attractive to veteran talent?
Yeah. So, I mean, I would say probably I would come at it from two different angles. So, I mean, I think when you started this podcast, I think you hit it on the head that you have to be doing it for the right reasons, and you
Mhm,
have to have an internal culture that supports that. Um, if you're talking to a veteran, they are going to know right away, if you're doing this because you feel like you have to, or if because you actually care, and you actually want veterans to come into your organization. So
mm,
a lot of times it's not actually starting at let's hire more veterans. A lot of times it's taking a step back and looking at your internal culture first.
mhm,
Are you offering things like an employee resource group? Are you offering benefits, for, like, for example, somebody that's currently still in the Guard or Reserve? Do you offer any sort of continuation of pay or benefits should they get deployed or while they're on training? Um, those types of things matter. And even for a veteran who may not currently be in the Guard or Reserve, if they see that you offer those things, those are going to be easy ways to demonstrate that you do care and you do want them here and you do value what you're bringing to the table.
mm,
But once you get to that point of having a good culture set up that can really support and retain that talent that you bring in, um, every company is a little bit different, I guess, in the way that you want to approach it. But the veterans network in the military community is truly a community. You need to have networks, relationships, partnerships in order to tap into that, because it's not possible for every organization, like even an organization of our size, we can't travel to transition centers and bases all over the country to recruit talent. It's just
mhm,
not possible. We don't have the budget for that.
right.
And most organizations don't, unless you're like a Fortune 1000 company, maybe.
Well, and plus there's
Um,
a million, or not a million, a quarter million
Tons of
enlisted
them.
transitioners every year. How would you have the resources or the people power to to get to all of them?
Exactly. It's impossible. So you
Mhm,
really, yeah, have to have those networks, those connections, and find ways to get in front of talent without physically getting in front of talent.
mm, mhm,
And some of that does come from your partnerships, being involved in the Chamber of Commerce, leveraging external sources like Mission Wisconsin, Hiring Our
Mhm.
Heroes, any of those types of programs that are going to help connect you. And that is really the best starting point, because veterans in the military community, they talk to each other. If you get a reputation as being an employer that is truly veteran friendly and or veteran ready, they're going to tell their friends spouses about Associated Bank, and that
Mhm.
you should go look here, you should apply here. But you have to do the front work in order to build that and get that word of mouth.
Yeah, and I think education is a huge part of it for the employers.
Yeah.
Getting employers who may not have experience with military folks,
Hmm.
because there's such a low percentage of people who are currently veterans. In the 80s, it was 17, 18%.
Hmm.
Now it's down to 7% of our total population.
Right.
So people are less of us are veterans and less of us know a veteran, right? So
Hmm.
people that don't have personal experience with veterans may have stereotypes or preconceived notions or
Absolutely.
ideas about who we are and what we can do, and getting employers to understand that the veteran community is very, very, very diverse. There are people
Hmm.
who have 4 years of job experience and 40 people
Yep.
who have, an associate's degree or a master's or a doctorate. A
Hmm.
stunning statistic is that uh, people who finish one enlistment, veterans, even with just one enlistment, have higher education at a higher rate than non-veteran Americans.
Hmm.
Have higher education at a higher rate. They have degrees at a higher rate.
Right.
So people have that idea in the back of their head that maybe they're less educated. Maybe they're just, to somebody who doesn't know, all veterans are infantry. How could their skills
Right.
possibly translate? So a lot of employers say, like, I want to hire more veterans, and in their mind, they're picturing entry level labor wage hourly work with no benefits.
Hmm.
And when you said veterans can sniff out whether or not they're doing it
Oh
for the
yeah.
right reasons from a mile away, that's a sign. They're
Hmm.
going from a position like, I was a staff sergeant, I was making $65,000 a year, my family had benefits and blah, 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 blah. And this guy's like, I appreciate veterans. I want you on this team. You're going to work on the assembly line for $11 an hour and no benefits. The vet
Hmm.
goes,
No
no, thank
thanks.
you. Yeah. I mean, I could be the shop manager. I could be I could be your program man. I could be all these other things. But, obviously, there's nothing wrong with working a labor wage hourly job,
No.
and some people are well suited to that. But generally speaking, most of your veterans are going to have at least 3-4 years of experience and progressive leadership experience and
Right.
progressive skill-based experience. So a lower hourly wage thing, it just doesn't make sense. And
Right.
the second they hear that, and they hear that you don't have opportunities in mind up and down the chain, they're like, you don't care about hiring veterans. You just want
Right.
to take advantage of me. You get tax benefits for hiring me.
Hmm.
Yeah, oh man, I could talk about that for a long, long
I
time.
know.
Yeah. So what other things, what did we leave out from the employment seeker or the seeker of employees, either the job hunter or the job provider? What did we leave out? What is some essential knowledge
Mm.
for either party when it comes to bridging that gap, building the bridge over the gorge between those two ends, between veteran talent and employers?
Yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily anything that we left out, but I mean, I guess I would definitely just reinforce that point of looking internally before you look externally. Because I think as I've talked to organizations, or if I would have even looked at Associated Bank 10 years ago, and said, what are we doing wrong? It would be trying to push that hiring externally, or even for a veteran as well, trying to force into an opportunity that you haven't maybe taken a step back and prepared yourself for.
Mm,
Um, that on both sides, like you said, you have to really look internally and see what are you doing that's maybe turning people away.
mm,
On the job seeker side, right? Is it that you haven't done any work to your resume and tried to put it in civilian terms to tell them what your skills and competencies are. Is it even sometimes as well, all job seekers do it every once in a while, veteran or not. Are you pursuing jobs that you don't have any skills or experience or training for, that it might sound really cool and it might sound really exciting, but you can't jump right into that role? And so
Mhm.
is it educating on how do you get there? Are there other roles that you can do to get to that dream job, that do leverage the skills and experience that you have today? Um, on the employer side, right? Are we trying to hire veterans, but we have no support system? We don't actually value veterans and their experience, or have anything in place to help support them. And I guess from that employer perspective as well, I would say also that it doesn't always have to be financial. I mean, is it great to be able to offer benefits like continuation of pay or benefits? Yes, but that does come at a cost for the organization. And sometimes, especially for smaller companies, that may not be possible. There may not be the resources or the budget to do that, and that's okay. But even some of those other things, like some of those free partnerships, like hiring our heroes, having an employee resource group, some of those things that cost you absolutely no money are still going to make an impact and ultimately help you to not only make that case to hire more veterans and get to the goal of what you want, but also then help that translate into retention. Because that's the biggest thing about the hiring spaces. And I even say as a recruiter, my job is to fill jobs, not retain people, quite frankly.
Mhm.
But if I'm not hiring people that are going to stay, that makes more work for me. I need to find people that are quality hires that are going to stay. And any company wants to do that. And that's what any job seeker wants as well. No job seeker, there are very few, if any, that enjoy switching jobs, that want to hop from job to job and not find a place to land. Everybody has the same goal. And so you just kind of have to look at yourself and what you're bringing to the table, to make it attractive, whether you're a job seeker or an employer.
So what does Associated Bank do then? You mentioned all these things. Like let's talk about Associated.
Yeah.
ERG continuation of pay is super rare. So I'm not
Yeah.
saying like is that so, like that it's expected, but is it something you do?
Mhm.
What do you specifically do um, to attract, to engage,
Mhm.
and to get people interested and hired, veteran talent
Mhm.
interested and hired, to show them that you're serious about supporting them in the right ways?
Yeah, yep, absolutely. So I'll talk a little bit about some of the specifics, but the first thing that I'll start with is, as you build all of this out, it's all about communication and branding. So you'll notice I have my nice little sweatshirt on here
Mhm.
today, that we've created branding. We have a page on our Associated Bank website that's dedicated to our military communities and what we do both internally and externally, to support the military community. So once you have it all in place, you have to talk about it. You have to tell people that it's
Yeah.
there. I mean, it's great that you have it, but if people don't know, it's not going to help you at all. Um, so some of the things that we have built out and that you'll see out and some of that branding and in some of those pages, is so internally, right? Some of the things that we offer to try to attract, and or retain, is right. We do offer some financial and benefits that are attractive specifically for our military community. So for individuals that are currently still serving in the Guard or Reserves, they do of course they continue their regular pay during any annual training.
Mhm.
They have 6 months of regular pay per deployment that will continue to pay them their normal paychecks for 6 months.
That is amazing.
Yeah. It's great. We've had a lot of colleagues who have used it, especially over the last 2 years,
Oh, I
with
believe
a
it.
lot
Yeah.
of National Guard units and
Mhm.
reserve
Mhm.
units getting deployed as a result of COVID.
Mhm.
Um, they also can retain their health benefits for up to 24 months.
Excellent.
Um, And then on the military spouse or military family side, we do offer up to $2,500 of reimbursement for them to travel to where an immediate family member may be getting deployed from. If they do get that notification that
Yeah.
a son or a daughter or even a parent is getting deployed and they don't live where they're stationed, they can get reimbursed for some of that travel cost to go out there and see them before they go. Um, as well as then, right, we do offer an employee resource group. So it is large, it's throughout our entire footprint. We do a lot in terms of not only internal support, we have a mentorship program for new hires that come into the organization to just help get them acclimated, not only to Associated Bank, but to banking if they're new to banking, and have somebody that is part of that military community to connect with. But we also do a lot of education as well. We talk about issues or things that the military community might be facing. Like, for example, when we pulled out of Afghanistan
Mm,
last year, we know that was a huge triggering moment for a lot
big
of our
time.
service members. So, providing opportunities to talk about that or share resources that we might have in the organization, such as our EAP, reminding people that it's there if they are having a hard time with the decision that was made. A lot of those things to help provide some of that infrastructure. As we talked about before, we do a lot of training within our talent acquisition team and for our hiring managers. We have a webinar course that we've created that specifically talks about hiring veterans, some of the differences you might see, even in the way that they talk about their experience and being more team oriented than personal accomplishment oriented, and helping them to differentiate between some of those things in conversations that they might be having in order to promote hiring managers making decisions that are in aligned with our values. But then, I mean, lastly, I would say again, those partnerships. We can't do it alone. We're not the experts. We try to know as much as we can and learn as much as we can. But I mean, being a part of the chamber, being part of hiring our heroes, using partnerships like Mission Wisconsin,
Hmm.
working with the Department of Workforce Development, all of those connection points help us to not only continue to evolve what we're offering internally, but also provide us opportunities to connect with candidates, make hires, and promote what we're doing to attract talent. And the last thing that I'll mention is kind of indirectly, it's not always about exactly what you're offering from an employment perspective, but just showing that you care. So we do a lot in the community. We're involved with a lot of our American Legion posts or
Yep.
other
Yep.
local organizations. We offer VA loans as a bank from a product and service perspective to help support veterans buying homes and being established in our communities. So there's a lot of things that we just try to do from that perspective as well that isn't necessarily directly related to actively recruiting talent. But again, just shows our commitment to that community and hopefully encourages them that even if they don't know anything about any of those benefits or anything that we offer as an organization, if they see Associated Bank with our green shirts at a ruck march or something like that, that maybe it'll kind of prompt that Associated Bank is a great place to bank, or maybe somewhere that I'd like to work.
Hmm. Man, that was all
It's a
just
lot, I'm
gold.
sorry.
No, that was great. It was golden information right there. I got to go to the beginning though. You mentioned the branding and
Yeah,
the quarter zips.
yes.
Are those available for Veterans Chamber members? Because those things are slick.
I could probably get you one. They're on our company store right now, so it's not available necessarily for ordering externally, but I could definitely order one
You
for
hook
you.
up your friendly neighborhood Veterans Chamber staff member.
Absolutely. Yeah, you guys just send me what you want and I'll order it for you.
How can somebody get in touch or learn more about Associated Bank and what they're doing? You said there was a specific veteran landing page.
Yeah, yep. So if you go to associatedbank.com/veterans, you will get directed to the landing page that holistically talks about everything that we do at Associated Bank, both internally for our colleagues as well as in our communities. As well as, I mean, if somebody is looking for something particularly from a either job seeker or employer connection standpoint, they can always reach out to us at careers@associatedbank.com. And we're always more than happy to connect or point you in the right direction of the right person to talk to.
You betcha. And I got it scrolling across the bottom
Oh,
there. Is that right?
perfect.
Excellent. Well, Mallory, thank you so much for your time. That was all
Yeah.
very cool, very informative stuff. Ask you to just hang on the line for just a minute. I'll touch base with you here at the end. Folks, that was awesome. Really cool stuff. That is a company that does it right. And you could tell by all the programs and processes that they have in place. Now, one thing that she mentioned that I want to bring attention to is smaller companies or less established companies that may not have the breadth or the resources or the tenure that an associated bank would have, probably may not have the ability to do something like 6 months of pay continuation if you get deployed, which is just incredible. That is, if you have the ability to do that, that's an incredibly attractive thing. Because talk about, somebody getting activated, they're getting their activated pay, but that may be less than they were making when they were working in the civilian world. So knowing that your family's taken care of while you're not there to provide that in-person support, it's monumental. If you're able to do that, that's huge. So like, it's awesome that they do that, but you may not be able to do that with your business. So what are those other things that you're able to do after looking internally and seeing what are the reasons behind why do you want to acquire veteran talent? Actually talk to veterans and see if you are in the right ballpark. But things like having a resource group, training and education for your managers on things to know, things to say, things to not say, ways to support, ways to not support, education. That's not going to cost you a lot. It'll cost you your time and your effort, but veterans can tell if you're not putting in the time and making an effort to support them appropriately. So if you actually want to do this thing right, you're going to have to put in a little bit of elbow grease, and you don't have to break the bank necessarily to do it. You just have to make sure that you spend the time to look inward and to educate yourself and to educate your next level managers. Be genuine about that support. All the things that she said that Associated does right now, that should be like as a gold standard. Your job, if you want to actually acquire diverse workforce that includes veteran talent, like that should be what you strive to do. Go listen to what she said again. That was all gold. I appreciate everybody tuning in here. Check them out, associatedbank.com/veterans. Hey, if you're looking for a gig, I tell you what, vets and military spouses out there, it's a company doing it the right way. I've heard nothing but good things. Appreciate y'all, and we will see you next week.